As promised, we're continuing the second part of the philosophy tier list. If you want to, you can go watch the first part over here. I'll show it on screen or whatever. But yeah, we'll be diving into metaphysics, if I'm not wrong, or epistemology. And, well, you already know what this is about. We'll be ranking them according to usefulness, soundness, how much we agree with them. We'll be more than happy to fight you in the comments. And without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so determinism. For the few who don't know, it basically states that all events are predetermined because they are the only possible outcome from past actions and the laws of nature. Technically, if you know the initial conditions of the universe and its laws, then you can determine pretty much every event that will happen. For me, I don't really like this one since it feels like a really religious approach to everything. So it's like, oh, everything can be calculated at some point. So I would probably give this one a D.
It might have been associated with religion at some point, but it's not actually that associated at the moment, I believe, because it's more like, okay, so atoms or atoms or subatomic particles move in this direction, and because of the laws of physics they will then move to this direction, blah blah blah. Like if we were to actually know the laws of nature, then determinism argues that we would know how anything is gonna go just based on the initial conditions of the universe. And I think that's quite an interesting way to think, but I don't know if science at the moment quite agrees with that stance because of emergence, I believe, is one of the biggest ones. So I think somewhere between a C and a D tier makes sense, because I would give it maybe a C because it provides a lot of interesting thoughts and debates about whether laws should even exist if we are not necessarily if our actions are actually determined by previous conditions or by our own conditions. So I think makes sense. I don't think it should be as extreme as you cannot change anything, but it's definitely interesting because people who are in a position are likelier to act a certain way just because of how humans work in general.
Oh, yeah, of course. Okay, like, that does make sense, and it does make it interesting. I think it's a lot of, like, magical thinking, where it's like, oh, if you just know it. Like, okay, if I roll a dice, like, I know it's going to be a number between 1 and 6, but I'm... okay, like, sure, I can guess 1 or 2 times, but it is pretty much impossible for me to guess it an infinite amount of times, you know?
I mean, I think it's not necessarily based on a human thinks human can know it, but rather someone who had all the knowledge can know it. So if they know, like you threw the dice, I think the dice is actually one of the easier ones for determinism. It's like, okay, so if you throw it with this strength, you know how much strength you threw it, you know the air dynamics, whatever. Not like I do, but you throw it, then once it hits the table or whatever, you should know how
like,
much it
yeah,
bounces.
that's gonna be a 4.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
But for humans, it's not really applicable. It's like more of an interesting thought, I believe. Yeah.
Okay. I would still put it on D. I would still put it at D since it's just like super far away from it to being applicable to humans, you know?
It's a very fair point. I think D is fine just because it does give interesting ideas, but it's just from a very abstract idea already.
So skepticism is all about doubting the knowledge that you have and that it is given to you. There are 2 types of skepticism: the one that seeks strong evidence before accepting a position, and denialism, which just denies truths or knowledge even when it has reached a consensus or it is right on your face. With some examples like climate change, denialism, and HIV and AIDS denials. I mean, what else is there to say? Skepticism is just like, I don't know, man. Is this really it? Or like, is there more to it? Just like trying to build upon the knowledge, and denialism's like, nope. You know, so this being said, skepticism I think it's super important to doubt what you have already, because if you just take whatever you have for granted, there's no room for growth, you know? And on the other hand, denialism, it's just that. Denialism is just insane. It's just being insane. Yeah, I don't know if you have anything else to add to that.
Yeah, even denialism is just, oh yeah, I accept some facts as true, And then if you don't agree with something, you just go and are like, no, this is not true. You don't need arguments because you're a monkey rambling on a screen about how hate doesn't exist or something. But skepticism,
Yeah, exactly.
just go to it because, for example, if you pair skepticism and relativism, then in theory, someone living like in the 30s or something where racism was quite a big thing will be like, okay, so
It
what
still is, but yeah, I get what you mean.
a much bigger thing rather, or at least literally legal racism or things like that. But well, the point is,
Yeah, I got you.
a skeptic would be like, okay, what's the science telling me? Oh yeah, the size of the skull correlates with intelligence. Well, not only are you measuring the things wrong, but also what are you yapping about? It's like there's so many things debunking
Yeah.
the science at this point that a skeptic at the time, if they weren't afraid of backlash, they would be like, it is straight up stupid. Like the basis of your
Yeah.
knowledge is just dumb. This is why. And a denialist would not say anything. Would just be like, no.
Yeah, they it's stupid because in the it's like it's in a level it's the opposite of skepticism. It's like it's trying to be skepticism, and it's like, oh, I don't know, man, I cannot trust you. But it's just like the opposite, where you just take the information and you just accept it as the opposite. It's basically the same as just taking the information for granted. And taking back what you said about like if you were brave, that's why cynicism is probably as high as it is as well. Then it's like, okay, you need skepticism and cynicism, and then you throw it into the whatever, and you have fix to relativism. But yeah, this being said, I would probably or most definitely, I think we agree that skepticism goes onto the S, and nihilism gets its own garbage tier, which is super.
Even denialism here can work because it sucks so bad. But
Yeah, it's the only one that's still way there. I think we have it as a sad phase. So yeah, it's sad phase tier. Denialism goes on the side sad phase tier. So next up we have Rationalism and Empiricism. And Rationalism states that the reason is the chief of knowledge and the truth is not sensory, but intellectual and deductive. So you're just born and you should be able to deduct and know everything. Now, on the other hand, empiricism says that knowledge is not innate and that it is best gained by observation and through sensory experiences. If we're using either of these as an absolute, both of them kind of really suck, since a big part of knowledge is both experimenting and thinking about stuff. If I see somebody eating a poisonous berry, there was no way I could have just like thought like, yeah, that berry is poisonous, you know? But now that I watched another guy eating a poisonous berry and dying, I'm like, oh, okay, I should not eat this because this guy died. The point is that I think you kind of need both of them in order to like just exist.
I think, yeah, both of them are. Of course, if you put them together, it's great. But rationalism, like, of course, you can kind of figure out a few things, I guess. Like, I don't know, math is not really that. Like, just with axioms, you can literally build up all of math. So as long as you can come up with those axioms, then you're golden. That's the same for many other, like philosophy, for example. Though it's much easier if you observe things, it could theoretically work like that. But empiricism, you just have senses and you don't really think about things. Then what are you doing? Like, you're just kind of sensing around things. And it's like, person was berry, human eat, die. Okay, eat berry. Because you don't really know it's poisonous. You didn't connect that the person died because of berry. But yeah, with that I would give something like rationalism as C and empiricism as D, just because.
Yeah, I agree. But just to like add something like real quick, I think it's also interesting because there are some things that you just like know, like you just know how to breathe. You don't really need to get, and there's more interesting. I don't know if it's the case for like every single animal, but I know that dogs usually avoid chocolate, or at least our dogs do. Because and my dad's logic is like, oh, they won't eat it. They know it's bad for them. But I'm like, how the hell do they know if it's bad for them?
I would say that yeah, it makes sense because some things just are ingrained in your own humanity or whatever. Like for example, cats are scared of cucumbers because they think it's basically like a snake or something like
Snake.
that.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. They evolved because the smart cats who saw a cucumber that's not really a cucumber, one that wants to eat them instead of them eating it. They evolved and they reproduced because they weren't destroyed by the snake. Like similar things apply to humans, like instinctive
Yeah,
reactions.
like the uncanny valley, right?
Oh, the uncanny valley is a crazy one. I
Yeah.
really like the theory. Yeah, I think the point is some things are innate, usually because of evolution. But yeah, that's kind of, I know where to put that, whether on rationalism or empiricism, but it's an interesting one.
Yeah. So basically, just to sum up, rationalism goes on C, and empiricism goes on B.
So moving on, this is like three different ones, which is nihilism, existentialism, and absurdism. So first, existentialism and absurdism are responses to existential nihilism. So let's see what nihilism even is. So nihilism is a general philosophy that denies the basis of certain ideas. So most commonly known because when people think of nihilism, they're like, oh, these sad people that deny there's a meaning. Yeah, that's literally what they think nihilists do. For example, existential nihilism is, I deny that there's a true meaning in life. There is just none. But another example is in epistemology. So epistemological nihilism just denies the knowledge and truth, but it also just says there's no facts, which is, I mean, it's true, but it also kind of doesn't incentivize you to acquire knowledge in the future. In general, nihilism, I keep it as C first. Yeah.
So I do get why people frame it as this like doom and gloom, because it's a common misportrayal of it. But I still think it's kind of dumb. So because it's like, I mean, you're already here, like you might as well enjoy it, if that makes sense, or not enjoy it because I'm feeding this misportrayal. But yeah, for me it's still like, who cares if nothing has like a true absolute abstract value? Like, no man, who cares? Whatever. So yeah, I think you said you would give it a C, and I think it totally deserves a C. At least nihilism.
Yeah.
I don't think we've touched
Yeah, I mean,
the rest. Yeah.
I was gonna separate them a bit because it's a bit easier to digest. Yeah, nihilism, I think it's more like, rather than a philosophy, it's kind of an alternative question, because usually in philosophy people ask what's the meaning of life, and nihilism says there's no meaning in life, so you should reformulate your question. And in this way, I think it's a perfect blank slate to create philosophies, but on itself is not quite a philosophy that stands alone, because it just gives a statement of there's no meaning, or this question is wrong in a sense. But yeah.
Or I saw a video a couple days ago. I would need to quote it and see like the actual source. But I think they stated something like, okay, what if they tell you that, I don't know, like aliens harvest us, or I don't know, like human Jews once you die and they just like take you and we feed their batteries or something, and you're like, wait, so we're just like batteries for you guys? And then the aliens go like, yeah, like in the movie Matrix, really good movie. We're like, okay, like that would make all meaning of like the void, you know? Okay, like that makes sense, even if it's not the case, even if it's just like, well, it has no meaning. It's still like, you might as well enjoy it, even if we're being harvested for human use or whatever. But yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a good formulation of how to ask questions, and doesn't necessarily say much. So I think a C is fair. So, anyways, moving to absurdism. This one is a response to existential nihilism, and there's many forms of it, but the one I'm more familiar with is Camus, like Albert Camus. So he states that life has 3 cycles, which is the first one of which is the absurd, which is dealing with the idea that life itself is absurd and there's nothing we can do that has a meaning in the future, or like in the long run. Then negation, which is where one might contemplate suicide and realizing how disconnected we are with the world might lead you to you're like, I might as well end my life now because it's gonna end eventually and it has no meaning. But then finally, if you go through that phase, you can reach the positive, which is when, oh, look at that, which is when one accepts that the lack of meaning and that our life will end, but you choose to endure the ride and find a liberation on what you do yourself. So,
Yeah, it's just literally based nihilism.
yeah, you realize nothing matters is your first kind of stage, or a cycle you might fall into. But then you have the other one, which is nothing matters. I will just endure what I'm doing, and I think Camus has a great presentation of these.
It's like the positive and natural way forward to nihilism.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. Give it a B, just because I find it personally. I would think it's kind of hard to find a liberation in what you're doing without giving yourself a purpose, which is why I agree more with existentialism, which we will see in a bit. So
yeah, and what if your like situation is like horrible? I mean, yeah, like duh. Okay, yeah, I agree. A B is fair.
yeah, so some people might find liberation, but it's hard. So, anyways, we'll move on. Existentialism, it's also a response to nihilism. It says, "There's no meaning in life, then I will make my own meaning." And it accepts that there's no universal meaning, but that as humans we struggle to give our life meaning, which is the only way to give or to live an authentic life, which is by finding meaning on it. So, that's what existentialism says, and says when absurdism isn't enough because you just kind of accept and find liberation in whatever you're doing, but existentialism helps you make your own meaning without relying on what you have in that sense. And I think it's one of the best applications of relativism because it's like there's no universal meaning. It is relative to how you live life and what you think life should be like. So in a sense, it seems quite plausible and it makes you question your life with a guidance on a more positive light. So I give it an easy A tier for me at least.
Yeah, it's like the even better and natural way forward of like absurdism, you know, because like even me, I didn't read the bit that you wrote about existentialism, and even without reading it, like my natural conclusion was just like, yeah, but like not everybody can just accept that their objectively bad life is good enough, you know. So like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, like totally agree. Definitely an A tier considering where we started for these three.
We're finally moving to metaphysics. Cartesian dualism states that the mind and the body, or matter, are distinct entities and they can stand on their own, but they causally interact with each other. So how that thing says is that the body interacts with matter, the mind makes something out of what we interact with. So when it comes to reality, it says that both the body and the mind show reality with the same accuracy. Like you can see your reality and you can think about reality, but reality is both in the physical and the mental. So
Yeah.
basically, it's not just like if you're an ovarian, you can float in a bubble because the mind is in the truth is the mind of the party. He was an idealist, which we'll see later. But Cartesian dualism is like, I'm not saying you float in a bubble right now. So you suck. You're not the objective truth.
You're not a bubble.
Yeah.
You're not a bubble.
In Cartesian dualism, an A, because honestly, it's just both the body and the mind tell you things that you should connect together, and that's, I mean, honestly, kind of fair. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big fuck you to the party, and I agree that the party goes should fuck themselves.
Yeah, very fair.
Monism believes that only the mind or the body can perceive reality, or at least to a more accurate degree than the other. Idealism states that the mind is more accurate than the body, or that reality is partly mental. Similar to what we're mentioning right now to the 1984 reference that O'Brien said that he could float into a bubble, and everybody would agree that he turned into a bubble, and therefore that rewrites reality. But since I don't agree, that's not how it goes, right? But whatever. And Physicalism states the opposite, that since O'Brien, I didn't see O'Brien turn into a bubble and like actually do it. It's like, yeah, no, it doesn't. It didn't happen. So they're both weird on their own right, but I don't think there's a way of a purely physical or a purely mental world. I don't think it should be. I don't think it will work. But like the one that meshes them together is neutral monism.
So, neutral monism, instead of saying, oh yeah, Cartesian idealism or physicalism, none of the above. It thinks neither the body nor the mind show you reality, even if both are derivative from it. So basically, Cartesian dualism, yeah, it's kind of accurate. It's what neutral monism would kind of think, but it is not accurate. It's just like a derivation of reality. And then idealism is, you're just considering the mind. It's not as accurate. Physicalism is also not as accurate. So basically, neutral monism is, okay, all of these ways to think, they just show you a part of reality that depends on reality, but it is not reality at all. So
yeah,
I think this one is kind of here in a sense, because it's similar to kind of saying that neither of them really show reality, but at least they give you like an idea of what reality is like, which is fair, but I think Cartesian dualism makes to me more sense, at least.
yeah, that's why it got an A. And I think idealism gets like a C, and physicalism a D. Since, okay, it might sound like we agree with the party on this one, but I think they both suck, really. And yeah, neutral monism gets a comfortable B. I have no arguments against it whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, it's metaphysics. It's not as debatable, honestly. So idealism makes sense in C. You can think of things. Physicalism seems insignificant because you cannot think of what you feel. So it's like, yeah. C and D makes sense.
So this is the final ranking of the philosophy current tier list. We hope you enjoyed this video. Let us know what you thought about us using our face cams, or doing this in a more podcasty style, or let us know if you like the old style more or whatever. Hope you liked it. If we left out any philosophy currents that you might want us to explore in a later future, feel free to leave them in the comments. We'll be more than happy to discuss on them. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. We'll see you on the 25th with another video, which hopefully will be to your liking. Otherwise, feel free to browse on the many other videos on our channel. We're barely getting started, so feel free to leave another comment, follow us, or whatever you want to do. And that should be pretty much it. Thank you for watching.